Today's horror story is written by Astroth6. Remember when everyone was finding lost episodes to TV shows? It was usually kid shows, and they would always go the same way. Everyone acts cruel, somebody dies in a gory fashion, the end. It was fun for a while, but the formula got repetitive. And of course, no one thought they were real. Like everyone else, I hadn't thought of the lost episode since maybe 2015. Well, now I'm thinking about them more than I ever did back then. I found it at a yard sale. Yes, I go to those. Why yes, I do have cases of video games from the 90s and bootleg horror movie compilations. It's also a great way to get your hands on cheap tools. Anyway, among the immensely crappy bargain bin comedies, one DVD case stood out. It was obviously some sort of compilation by the oversized case. The cover was bright and loud. I noticed it was made up of many smaller pictures. As the only thing that stood out in the bin, I picked it up immediately. Lost Episodes Anthology. That was the title. I read it out loud in confusion. My first thought even then wasn't that kind of lost episode. This was a whole physical DVD. That just wouldn't make sense. I assumed it was a compilation of unaired episodes of old TV shows, the traditional kind of lost episode. Still, the fact that it caught my interest and had no obvious indication of what shows it might hold meant that for the asking price of $1, it was a no-brainer to just buy it and check it out more at home. So I did just that. I paid the perfectly ordinary, middle-class, late 30-somethings running the yard sale and went on my way. It actually took a few days to pull out the DVD and take a look at it again. I wouldn't say I totally forgot about it, but it didn't make a huge impression on me, so it took a while to top my to-watch list. The next Saturday evening, though, with nothing good to watch, I decided to give it another look. A good, close look at the case answered something I wasn't certain about with only a quick glance at the sale. It had to be a bootleg. The front only had the title Lost Episodes Anthology, and the back had no text at all. There were none of the usual markings of a DVD, Blu-ray, etc. to be found on the case either. A closer look at the case was confusing, to say the least. The little pictures making up a nonsensical collage were just screenshots of series. The weird part was just how many random series. I saw Lucy Ricardo laughing and Walter White crying. I think Jack Benny might have been there sharing the cover with Jon Snow and Sheldon Cooper. Someone tried to take a clip of every TV show ever? And no, they weren't all American. I just named the characters I recognized instantly. More than a few were Indian, Korean, and many others were in there too. A fact that was itself possibly even more odd, as it threw the nationality even of this disc in question. With nothing to go on from the case, I opened it up. Inside was a single DVD. I admit I had expected more from the oversized case. Most compilations, especially cheap ones, are on multiple discs. That led me to assume it was only going to be a few episodes. I quickly learned my assumption was wrong. In the front cover of the case was a booklet. I was immediately happy to see something that I assumed would answer my question. On the front of the booklet, in the same simple font, was the title again, Lost Episodes Anthology. I opened the booklet. The contents confused me at first glance. It was a list, no other text, but the font was incredibly small. Each little page had 3 rows of entries. Each title so minuscule the rows were dozens of titles long. It made no sense. I flipped through the booklet, 6 pages, each were the same. There were no credits, no logos, just titles. Easily over 300 titles, given without context, filled the book. What the hell was this? The disc couldn't possibly hold that many episodes, nor could any company possibly have rights, and it was ridiculous to imagine a bootlegger company compiling such a thing. Finally, that many series couldn't have lost episodes, unless the bar was lowered to any scraps of unaired footage. The obvious next step to take was zooming in with my phone and trying to make sense of the list. It made no sense. It seemed to list everything. I mean, nearly everything. Every famous show ever. Heroes, I Love Lucy, Happy Days, Game of Thrones, Arrow. You get the picture, right? All of the people I saw on the cover, and anything more I could think to look for. Then I scanned it for obscure titles, obscure fandoms I fell into that few people would know about. Surprise, surprise, Winona Earp? On the list. Clutch Cargo, of all ridiculous things? On the list. This settled the matter to me that the list could not possibly be the actual contents of the disc. Honestly, the list itself was unsettling to look through for long. Nothing was explicitly wrong, but it felt off how I was able to navigate through the items. It's hard to explain why exactly. The best I can say is it was too easy to find each item. I was able to navigate the list because it was alphabetized. If I wanted to find MO, I skimmed to where MS should be and skimmed down the list to find MO. It felt strange though, like I only needed to go past a couple dozen titles until I was looking at Mobile Suit Gundam. But if I actually looked for titles with MA or ME, the list was exhaustively long. Still, I couldn't confirm anything was actually up without carefully photographing and cataloging the list, something I had no interest in doing right then. The only other interesting thing about the list was the last item. It wasn't alphabetized. Instead it read, Director's Commentary. Director's Commentary? Which director? Wasn't this a compilation of shows? Though, when it couldn't possibly be that encyclopedic list in the case, I suppose even that was in question. Only way to find out was to put the disc in. I popped it straight into a DVD player. No way was I putting this increasingly shady thing into any device with an internet connection. After a blank blue screen lingered for a few seconds, the disc went straight to the main menu. I was not terribly surprised that there were none of the typical screens a legal DVD would have. The menu used the exact same collage as the box for its background. There were 3 items: Search Title, Random Episode, Director's Commentary. That was it. There was no list of episodes, which, despite my disbelief, meant that the insert in the box was obviously supposed to be how I would pick. This DVD truly claimed to hold lost episodes from virtually every TV show ever produced under the heavens. What was I going to see? Clips? Gag reels? Some weirdo's amateurish home production? I needed to play something to learn. I could have picked a random episode, but I wanted to know what would happen if I searched for any given title, so I typed in a name. I picked The Smurfs. It just seemed like something this sort of collection would have. At first I wanted to see what these episodes were. Later I would get to checking how many were actually in there. 2 entries came up: The Smurfs 1961 and The Smurfs 1981. Okay, I did not expect that. I made a mental note to look up whatever the hell this is even before selecting 1981. The Smurfs intro started to play. I still didn't truly expect anything real to play, but the intro was in full professional quality, not even a crappy rip. Everything looked normal, and then the title card appeared. The Forest Festival Folly. I immediately looked it up. No such episode existed. The title would have fitted just fine in any list. It sounded just like real episodes, such as The Magnifying Mixture, but it just wasn't there. The episode ran just like any other. The quality was completely identical to a real episode. Everything fit perfectly. The plot saw the Smurfs preparing for some animal friendship festival. The idea seemed to be that the animals would pick Smurf berries and give them to the Smurfs as thank you for all the village does to protect the forest. Handy Smurf gets it in his head to invent a machine to help the animals out in gathering the berries, not understanding that this defeats the purpose of the event. Gargamel catches wind of things, as usual, comes up with a crazy plan to catch the Smurfs, as usual, catches a load of Smurfs, as usual, and the friends they made along the way come to rescue, as usual. Except they didn't. Obviously, Handy's machine should have been used by the woodland creatures to rescue the Smurfs, and Handy should have admitted that he never should have drawn Gargamel's attention by meddling in the first place. The Smurfs were captured without anyone learning anything. There are teary apologies, forgiveness, and then dead Smurfs. All in the style of the original cartoon. No hyper-realistic blood, just goofy Hanna-Barbera dead Smurfs. I was shocked and really freaked out. That was actually the moment I thought of the old Lost Episodes stories. Nothing until then suggested any kind of horror. I wasn't traumatized or anything, but it was deeply uncomfortable seeing Smurfs boiled to death in exactly the style I saw them when I was a kid. I hit the power button on the TV and took a moment to take stock of what I just saw. Fan projects to make lost episodes always look like just that. No budget, crappy Photoshop jobs, or awful splicing of scenes into some half-assed abomination. No one has the budget to make real, full lost episodes. Even if they did, how did they fake the voices? That was Don Messick to a T. The episode was too complete, too high quality to be a production prank. The most mental gymnastics I could do to justify the thing's existence was that maybe the episode was a real, unused episode, and the bad ending was a joke. Or someone with a lot of money and talent spent a long time on that. I realized that there was no way to rule out the latter idea entirely. I turned the TV back on, navigated back to the menu, and selected search again. Then I typed in Breaking Bad. A live-action show would be impossible to mock up, even with incredible talent and dedication. The actors are either there or they aren't. And no, I don't believe anyone yet has the skill to deepfake an entire plausible-looking episode of Breaking Bad yet. Oh, and fun aside, I never actually watched the show until this incident. All the online jokes made me think of it as the default example of modern television, though. That's why I noticed it on the box and thought to search it. The episode started up. Just like the Smurfs, everything seemed normal. I can't tell you what season this was in or exactly what was happening for the reasons I just gave, but I could tell this was continuing off events I assume actually happened in the show. Walter White was trying to keep hold of his meth empire, dealing with the collateral it was taking on his life, etc. I already told you, I'm not informed enough to talk educationally about this one. I absolutely know when it went wrong, though. Walt believes Jesse is selling him out. An argument ensues. Walt straight up kills him. Then he proceeds to disassemble his body and dissolve it in excruciating detail. He's clearly tormented by this, though, and is thrown off his game far more severely than the average betrayal and killing in the show. He attempts to pull off some deal, again continuing from some ongoing plot, but badly botched it and gets himself killed. I think it was half on purpose, really. That was awful and fucked up. Not hugely more than the pretty dark show it was based on, or so I gather. But like the Smurfs, it somehow juggled being completely plausible with luridly dwelling on the unexpected brutality of the deaths of the main characters. I think if I'd known the plots and stories more, I would have felt the breakdown harder. Or would I? It's fair to say at this point I was enthralled. What I just saw was impossible. Flat out impossible. There's no way a full-length episode of perfect quality was edited together like that. The actors were impeccably perfect to nearly a decade ago. The action was unbroken and yet included scenes that never would have been filmed. Now that I knew what I was in for, it was time to let me hit it where it would hurt. I wanted to feel the real impact of a lost episode. I went back to the main menu again. This time I searched for Winona Earp. Yes, I was going to watch my own niche interest. First, the important fact I learned. Yes, these episodes do fit themselves with the stories of the show, seemingly at easy points to create the gruesome endings they depict. In this case, it picked up immediately after the end of the first season, where the real Season 2 episode should be. I'll keep the synopsis as simple as I can. The B-plot deals with the titular protagonist's younger sister, Waverly, being infected by a demon. In the real show, this was only faintly mentioned until a few episodes later. In this version, it immediately starts behaving in classic evil possession style, wickedly sowing doubts and division among the characters. Here it is much more blunt and cruel, though. It immediately brutally mocks Waverly's girlfriend, Nicole, and breaks the relationship. The scenes are unnecessarily cruel and filled with homophobic slurs. The A-plot sees Winona far more depressed by the death of her sister at the climax of Season 1. Her typically comical alcoholism grows out of control. Love interest Doc Holliday tries to rein in her behavior, but she rebuffs him. This is all fairly in character and resembles plots covered later in the show, just a tad darker. It grows worse and worse, though. Ultimately, she picks a fight with Revenants, the monstrous villains of the show, while far too depressed and intoxicated for her skills, and is brutally killed. Doc, Dolls, and Nicole try to pull together to see if anything can be done, but without the protagonist's supernatural gun, and with the intervention of possessed Waverly, all are easily killed. I explain this so you know yes, unlike my other vague synopsis, everything here makes sense and fits the show. These lost episodes don't just have the right characters and setting, they seem to fit the show's canon. I'm not going to lie. What I just saw was depressing and hurtful. Seeing a character I actually like spew vile, hurtful words and then everybody die was awful to watch. But what I had was beautiful, useless, and amazing. I could see actors dead for 70 years acting again. I could see completely authentic, even if utterly horrific, episodes of shows canceled decades ago. Hell, this thing might even make endings for shows canceled on a cliffhanger. Sure, it would be a bad ending, but it's still something. And something impossible that only I had. So I watched that thing. I watched episode after episode, all night long. It was like staring at a car crash, sickeningly fascinating and with a desire to piece together what happened. I watched all new, innocent, family-friendly jokes from I Love Lucy end in screams and flame as the cross-country car trip arc instead ended in a crash with no survivors. I watched every one of Candace's fears for Phineas and Ferb realized. Special Agent Fox Mulder truly learned the final truth. I didn't need sleep, not with these new wonders to see. Does knowing there's going to be a bad ending ruin the fun? If you really think about it, not really. Traditionally, you always knew there's going to be a good ending at the end of every episode. And even if that isn't really true in TV anymore, it still very much is in movies. I knew how it was going to end, but the journey to get there was every bit as interesting. Just what trouble was Richie going to get himself into to land a date this time? And how were he and the Fonz going to die in agony getting out of it? My wake-up alarm went off halfway through an episode. I had to get ready for work. With an exhausted groan, I hit pause and turned off the TV. It was another painfully repetitive, dead-end day of labor. I had something to look forward to now, though. Grim and strange miracle. But can anyone deny that in this mundane world, being possibly the sole owner of something truly, unmistakably magical wouldn't change things? A DVD of bad ending might not be a dragon's egg or the Holy Grail, but it was my own magical artifact, and it was amazing. The whole entire workday was spent waiting to get home. It actually felt good to be eagerly waiting for something again, even if it was irritating to be forced to wait. The instant I was home, I went straight for my lost episodes again. I had so many shows I was curious to see. By this point, I was looking up shows I had never even been interested in, just to see how it would make them go wrong. Of course, my body needed sleep eventually. I passed out some time during the night while watching more episodes. Or at least I think I did. If I did, then I dreamt of death. People I know dying. People I'd only seen or barely met dying. I watched lost episodes of my life. My wake-up alarm went off. I had to head back to work. I turned the TV off. I pushed through the workday, just wanting to see more lost episodes. Obviously, the wacky races would just end up in a bloody pileup. But how would Katerina Claus get herself killed in my next life as a villainess? I was even more antsy throughout the day. I just wanted to get home again. All I wanted was to curl up and watch my disc. And it repeated again the next day. The dreams again too, if they were dreams. I still couldn't have told you. It was becoming my pattern, except I couldn't keep it going. I didn't even realize it at the time, but I was becoming less stable with each passing hour. By then, I thought of the visions, dreams, whatever, constantly. I looked at people and I knew how they would die, could die. I fell in love with the tragic beauty of violence. I snapped while doing perfectly ordinary work. My supervisor gave me a typical instruction. Fuck off! Not surprisingly, I took a few seconds to even realize what I'd said. It was all the more shocking because my supervisor is actually kind of a friend. She's stuck in the same shitty gig, just for about a decade longer, so past the hope of getting out. Shit! I'm sorry! I'm not feeling okay. I lamely babbled out my apology and excuse. You sure aren't. She stared me down. I'll call in sick tomorrow. She sighed. Do that. Something ain't right about you. You need to get it sorted. I let out the breath I'd been holding. I was just so relieved I wasn't fired. I knew it wouldn't last long, though. Not how things were. I finished out the day and went home. For the first time in days, I didn't run to my TV chair. I just stood in the doorway for a few minutes and thought about what was happening. I let myself feel what was happening. Christ, I hadn't eaten in days. That only occurred to me then. My body was so weak. I still didn't know if I'd actually slept either. I dragged myself back over to the TV. Turning it on, I saw it was still playing. A dying Buffy tearfully apologizing to Dark Willow, I think. I sent it back to the menu. I clicked down the options to the director's commentary. I knew that I needed to see it. It was the only thing left to learn. It was the only thing left to give me answers before I cut this thing out of my life. I clicked play. The screen showed a dark room with a blacked out figure sitting in it. It was just like when documentaries and things try to keep a person's identity secret.
Why don't you introduce yourself?
A deep, heavily digitally distorted voice spoke from behind the camera.
I am the director.
A higher-pitched but equally distorted voice responded.
Let the audience know a little about what that means. Did you direct these episodes?
The interviewer asked. The director laughed.
No, I just collected them. It's my passion. I want to see these pieces available and seen as the complete expressions they are. The director is a nickname, a title of sorts, given to me because of how often I screened and distributed these pieces to interested parties.
So, tell us a little bit about these episodes and what they mean to you.
The interviewer continued this incredibly ordinary interview, except for the anonymity.
Media, traditional media, is how humanity expresses how it sees itself. Lost episodes are another side of this. Lost episodes are how media expresses humanity. If a movie or a TV series are self-image, what we see in our mind's eye, then a lost episode is the mirror image, what the world sees.
So, lost episodes are a natural phenomenon.
They are.
The director agreed.
And a useful one, an important one. They help us understand who we are. I have a little thing I like to do with people when I explain it. Take the DVD. Look at it.
I stared blankly at the screen.
Go on. Look at it.
The director urged. I numbly popped out the disc. I was no longer surprised when the screen didn't change. I looked back at the disc.
A DVD is just like a mirror. I know this is a bit of a platitude, but it is true. It is a mirror holding data, but the most important data it holds is what it reflects about the person who watches it.
I stared at my face in the disc. I saw a haggard, anxious, angry figure. I saw weakness and age I had never seen before.
Lost episodes are not ghosts. They are not demon. They are a choice. And like any choice, the websites you visit, the friends you keep, you will get out what you put in.
I didn't want to be this person I was becoming. I saw that in the mirror. I never saw people. I never did anything. Not after the disc. I didn't want to be the person I was becoming when I found the disc. Just going out to check a yard sale was the healthiest choice I had made in months. I stood up and turned off the TV.
Goodbye.
The director signed off as the screen went dark. I put the disc away in the case and went out to my car. I drove out into the night. I knew where I was going, but I didn't hurry to get there. I enjoyed the stars for a little while. I took simple pleasure in eating the forgotten snacks in my vehicle at stoplights until I reached my destination. I dropped the disc off in one of those free book exchange boxes. Sure, it wasn't the right sort of media, but I think it would find where it needed to be. I got home. I drank a warm glass of milk. I went to bed. And I slept. Thank you for listening. You can handle another horror story.
Right.